And here we go. Oh, we're live. Wow. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Hey, it's that time once again to get busy with Kit and Jim. We had a little bit of doggy drama here for a second, but we're ready to go. Can you believe that Halloween is over? We're already in the holiday season. Snowflakes have been flying in some parts of the country, and here in California, it's actually starting to rain and cool off a little bit here in SoCal, anyways. Yeah, overnight it was like 37 degrees over here in Palmdale. So the chilly air, the fall air is here. It's with us. And anyways, we're happy today to have with us on the show Christopher Adams. His business is called Christopher the Wine Jerk. And Christopher makes learning about, Christopher is a wine consultant, and he makes learning about wine super easy. With tastings to fit every budget and every palate, he presents wine in a way that's easy to understand and easy to enjoy. So, Christopher, good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning, James. Happy to be here.
Awesome. It's great. It's great to have you. Do you have a few words of wisdom for us this morning?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Hey, Kit, my partner in crime. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I'm good as long as my dogs are silent.
What's a good word? What's a good word for the day?
You know, it's Thanksgiving month, so gratitude. That's my theme for this month, to be more grateful for life and about life.
Oh, well, that's great. You know what? That's a great word for the day. Actually, a good word for the month, and let's all keep that in mind as we proceed into the holidays, because you know what? It gets kind of busy. It gets super hectic. Gets a little bit crazy. And yeah, one of the things that people do during the holidays is imbibe, so it's kind of timely that we're here with the wine jerk, and he can tell us all about wine, what the good, the bad, and the ugly, I'm sure. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So hey, Christopher, the whole wine consulting thing is really pretty cool. How did it come to fruition, and how did you come up with the name for your business, the Wine Jerk?
Well, that's a good question. I started off bartending and working a lot of banquets and functions and different events in a myriad of different places. And eventually I just learned, or I realized, that I like the wine people much better than I like the vodka people. So I just kind of leaned over to that side naturally. You know, I worked in retail and various jobs that had a little more wine connotation to them. But it was really when I moved to Los Angeles and I couldn't get a job in wine. So I took a little separation and I worked in TV for a while. But then when I got back into wine, I decided to really take it serious in terms of schooling, knowledge, you know, just kind of general know-how to really be helpful as opposed to a hindrance in the wine business. And that's it. You know, I worked at a store for many years doing wine tastings here in Studio City, California. And then that store sold to new owners, and I just went out on my own. And I moved the Wine Jerk from a part-time, you know, occasionally doing parties to making it my full-time gig. And so that's how it all came to be. I chose the name The Wine Jerk because I feel like, well, first off, there's a million wine dudes or wine guys or wine gals, and you really have to put the name wine into the name of your business if you really want to let people understand what it is exactly you do at the beginning. And so I had to put the name wine in there, and the Wine Jerk has been a nickname of mine for years. So it just seemed fitting. It's a name that I feel is a little silly the first time you hear it, but every time you use it, it kind of gains credibility, and it's very easy to remember. So there it is.
It is, yeah. You know what? The other week we had the yoga dork on our show, so
That's
now
great.
it's only fitting now that we have the Wine Jerk, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. There's actually a wine show called The Cork Dorks.
the cork dorks.
Yeah.
Oh,
For
that's
many,
awesome.
many.
So Christopher, you touched on the fact that early on in your career, you were in the entertainment business. You worked for a studio for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. When I moved to LA, I lived in Hollywood and worked at the studios. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a cell phone. I walked to work every day, made all my personal phone calls from work, and just kind of got familiar with the city. I could not find a job in wine because it just happens. And so I went to work for many different types of TV shows, worked at many different studios. Very interesting part of the Los Angeles experience.
Wow. What were some of the TV shows that you worked on?
Well, some of the shows I worked on. I worked on the Greg Show, which was a short-lived talk show. I worked on Little People, Big World, long reality show. I worked for that company. That company actually makes lots of shows for different networks. So there was always like a Behind the Music or I Love the 80s or something like that to work on. I also worked at the same time. I worked for TV shows that aired on BET and on country music television at the same time. That's how it works out here. You end up working for one company and they make shows for different networks. So while I didn't actually work for the network, I worked for the companies that produce those shows. So that's it. In that business, you're always, you might have a job for 6 weeks or 6 months and then on to the next. And so that's what accounts for so many titles in such a short period of time.
Wow, that's awesome, Christopher. Any crazy stories that you can tell us about working in the entertainment industry?
I don't want to offend anybody or get sued, so I will just say this. Reality TV is not real.
Right. It's not real.
I know that it's hard for a lot of people to accept that, but in reality, the producers, the cameraman, and everything, that's who writes the reality show. Then we cut it together to make it look like just a normal day in their life. And it's crazy. It's crazy how it works.
So you're telling us it's scripted or semi-scripted?
Yes, it's like an improv show.
Nice. Okay. Good insider scoop. Thank you for that.
I don't think that's an insider scoop. Just watch one episode of whatever.
Yeah, I tend to agree, but I think some people think, wow, this is really their life. You know what I mean? They see it on TV, and hey, it's reality TV. It's got to be real, right?
Is Kit muted?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm muted. I hear some echo, so I'm just muting myself and I'm not talking. Yeah, but I think reality TV. Remember, Jim, when we had Nora Whalen, who, by the way, is the audience, because wine drew her here. I know she loves wine, and I pinged her on Facebook, and she's immediately here. So, hey, girl. So we had her on the show with Copeland Richards. Remember, Jim? And Copeland was telling us that those Judge Judy kind of shows. Those are all like fake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't watch reality TV. I think it's very depressing. I know it's supposed to be entertaining, but I don't drink wine actually. But I think reality TV will make me pick a glass for sure, or more than one. I cannot watch reality TV.
Absolutely.
Especially the whole Kardashian and all that. I don't understand the point of those shows. I mean, who's even paying them to do all that? So anyway, Christopher, I had a question for you. So, I was just actually putting in the comments, and Carmen helped me with this, but I've noticed that people always like twirl a glass of wine and smell it before they drink it. Do you do that with every glass? I mean, what is?
Yes, except for champagne.
Okay.
But you do that with every glass.
Okay. So, because Carmen was telling me that way you'll be able to highlight the color of the wine and you'll be able to smell it better. Is that the logic behind it?
Some of the logic behind it. In reality, it's to detect faults. And so, yes, you'll be able to see if there was any sediment in your glass or if the wine had a very uneven color.
Okay.
Or, if there was any imperfections. Most of the I'll call it the pre-sipping stages of tasting wine really have to do with finding faults. Because in the classical days, in the old world of wine, let's say pre-1968, you really had to search for faults in your wine. And so you would actually, I brought a glass here to showcase. So you'd swirl the wine, and the wine kind of comes up on the side of the glasses, and then it forms, some people call them tiers, some people call them legs. You know, it's a layer of wine that kind of comes down in stream form. That is to test for imperfections and to look at the glycerin content, and overall to get a feel for the consistency of the wine. Now, obviously, that changes depending upon your vessel. So if you have a crystal glass, which has a much more porous, rough surface, your wine will stick to that a little bit longer than if it is a like Pyrex glass. Then it will have a tendency to kind of sheet, as opposed. So that's the difference. I mean, it's very difficult to ascertain all there is to know from just looking at it and swirling it, but it definitely helps to increase your exposure to a particular wine. You know, then you become familiar with the way it's supposed to look and smell. So the next time you are presented with it, it becomes a more, you know, familiar part. I hope that does that help?
Yes, yes, for sure. Because as I always tease my husband, he does it all the time. Like, you're such a snob. Why do you do that? He's like, I don't know. I've seen people do it. So I just want to know what's the logic behind that.
Well, the real reason, you know, it's to put a little oxygen into the wine, because wine needs oxygen equals flavor. And then too much oxygen will kill the flavor, and that becomes oxidized wine.
Okay.
So that's, you know, and that's it. I also recommend just pouring a little bit into your glass as opposed to a full glass, and then you try to swirl it. So much liquid in there, there's no room for the oxygen. So I always recommend pouring a small portion to really get into the scientific side of tasting as opposed to the enjoyment side, which is where we might drink 2 or 3 glasses. Which I like too, you know. When it comes to the scientific part, that's the deal. That's also why, you know, we write notes and we spit out the wine when we're at tastings. I know a lot of people consider that to be ridiculous, alcohol abuse. I hear a lot. But in reality, when you're tasting the wines and you want to know more about the scientific side, then the alcohol becomes a hindrance, because it's hard to taste 50 wines and you're as clear at wine number 2 as you are at number 50. And so that's wear on you. Maybe you write a ridiculous review because you're a little drunk and it was wine number 50, and then it goes to press, and then the wine's really not like that, but you thought it was.
Oh, wow. 50 wines, huh? Oh, my God. I can't even imagine.
That's absolutely normal in a professional day.
Yeah? Oh,
absolutely. Wow. 50 wine, yeah.
Hey, Christopher, so we already have some questions from the audience or comments. Yeah. So I heard that we should chill red wine because American rooms are warmer than European rooms. Are we supposed to chill them and then let them rest for 30-ish minutes?
That's great advice. You know, there's a good rule, the 20-20 rule, which is for white wines, you put them in the fridge for 20 minutes before you drink them. And for red wines, I'm sorry. I'm in reverse. Forgive me. For the red wine, stick them in the fridge for about 20 minutes before you drink. That kind of cools them down and gets them ready. For white wines, you pull them out of the fridge 20 minutes before to give them a chance to come up and release more of the flavor. So I have a cellar in my house, a little tiny one. I bought it at Costco for a couple $100, and it holds 36 bottles and keeps them all at 56 degrees. It's perfect for me. I can pull the wine out, red or white, and get it going on. But it's absolutely true that room temperature in Europe is much cooler than room temperature here in America, even with central air. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, and I recommend to everybody, I tell them all, your house is too warm to store wine in if you live in Southern California. It simply is. You need to have some kind of controlled environment to keep your wines cold. And it goes the other way if you live in Minnesota. You don't want your wines to get too cold and freeze. A poorly made wine will freeze because there's going to be water content in there, which you may or may not know about, but that's just part of the business. And so the controlling of the temperature is the key to successful serving.
The importance of the temperature then is to maintain the quality and the flavor of the wine?
Absolutely. If it's cold, you won't get any flavors. You'll simply get acid, which you can taste when the wine is cold. But as the wine, I'm talking about white wines. But as the wine warms up, you really release more of the floral and tropical notes, if they're there, or the more herbaceous and citrusy notes. Once again, all wine is dependent upon the winemaker, the grapes that they made the wine with, and when you are opening it in comparison to when it was bottled. So all of those factors go into every bottle of wine. It's just an important part of the process.
Cool. So, yeah, that's great information. So, Christopher, I want to backtrack a little bit.
Yes.
What does a wine consultant do? What is it that you do? Tell us a little bit about your business, what you do, and how you help people with wine.
Sure. What does a wine consultant do? Well, I'm a personal wine consultant. Although I do work for restaurants when they need to set up menus or they want to go on wine lists. What I do is private events in your home, which would be 8 to 14 people. And I usually do 4 to 5 wines and spend about 10 minutes per wine trying to discuss things. And then the last 20 minutes, half hour becomes a Q&A. And I just try to answer people's questions. I find that most people set up their own questions. Everybody already has questions about wine because it is such a part of our culture. I feel like there's so much misconception and branding and false advertising out there that you really need somebody to help you kind of cut through and learn what it is that you like and how to go about your wine journey. I feel like everybody's on their own personal wine journey, and it doesn't really go in a linear method. It kind of goes in a round method where maybe you learn about California wines when you're young, but you have no idea about Bordeaux until you're older, or maybe you know only about Bordeaux and you've never tasted the lovely wines of the Rhone. So, there's many factors in terms of knowledge of wine. I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but what I like to do, what I like to do is I talk to my clients, I drink wine with my clients, I find out what it is that excites them in the wine world, and then I try to recreate that experience for them with different bottles. Obviously here in America, we have to realize that some of the very best wines from around the world, the famed local wines, they don't taste the same when they've made that long trip across the Atlantic Ocean and then all the way to California, and then we finally get a chance to taste it. So in that terms, if you haven't traveled much, American wines are going to be the best wines for you because of the traveling and the things of that nature. But listen, that's kind of a tangent. I don't want to get off on that. But what I really do is my clients, and I try to help them, guide them in the wine world. Everybody is somewhere on the scale of wine knowledge. It's a nonlinear type of thinking, and I really just try to make it accessible for them because maybe they felt like it wasn't, for them. I liken myself as a personal wine consultant to like an old golf pro. I care about your game, not my game. I know what I like, but I really want to help you find what it is you like. Even if it's not what I like, that's absolutely fine. When I first started in the business, I was a little overzealous, and that might have accounted for the wine jerk moniker because I felt like this is a great wine, and if you don't think it's great, then you're silly. But it can be a great wine, and then you don't enjoy it. It can be a wonderful Oscar-winning film, but I didn't care for it. Looking at you, Titanic.
Yeah, me too. No, but I absolutely love it. I love the way you're saying it's about the customer, it's not about you, which is kind of like what true entrepreneurs, visionary entrepreneurs, that's what they're all about. It's about the customer. You care about the customer's journey, and you try to guide the customer to find their, perfect tasting wine, which I think it's beautiful. I love the way you said, I care about your game, not my game.
Yes.
That's very nice.
Listen, it's very true. I mean, what I like best about being a wine consultant, honestly, is the thanks that I get from my clients. I get some great texts, at 11:30 at night after I leave a party, and I get some great emails the next day and some ridiculously fuzzy pictures sent to me, and everybody's so grateful for the good time they had. I understand that wine is not the most important thing on this earth. But wine comes from the earth, and it's part of the human experience. It has been since some of the oldest relics in all of the world are wine jugs. And so it must mean something to us to enjoy wine together and to want to share it with people, that we are around.
Yes, I think wine is about, it gives you a sense of community. I think it gives you a sense of being with people you love. I mean, you enjoy that picture of just kicking back with a glass of wine and reading a book. I mean, you read that kind of sentence all the time, and so I think you just foster a sense of community through wine. So it's not more about the wine per se, it's about the feeling you get while you're sipping.
Absolutely.
I think that's how I look at it, at least. That's how.
That's absolutely what I preach.
Yes.
Is, the experience, and the reason we like wine is because we've got some food or some friends or some family. If we just wanted the buzz, I recommend vodka. And don't worry about learning too much about wine. You know, just have a good time drinking it, because that's fine. But you got to understand that when we talk about, you know, being on that next level, it's got to do more with the origin. And you talk about the people, and a lot of these wines were commune wines, you know, wines from the village. They take on the name of the village that they are from, and it kind of becomes the calling card for that place. Just like when you go home after you've moved away to college and you smell some homemade cooking, and you're instantly brought back to how much you enjoy that. It's the same thing when you smell a wine that's very familiar to you or has characteristics that you enjoy. You take a whiff, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know.
Memories.
I put entire tastings on hold and go, excuse me. I just have to enjoy this for a little bit longer. You know, give me my 5 minutes here.
Yeah, memories. I guess you're creating memories with
Absolutely
every sip of
creating
wine.
memories. Absolutely.
Nora has a question here. She says,
Yes.
I live in DC and wine goes bad quickly. But when I was in Colorado over the summer, a bottle could last a week after opening it. What's up with that? Is it humidity? And she's using the same kind of stopper.
Well, you got me on that one. I don't know.
Could it be? Hey, could it be the elevation? Because in Colorado, you're like at, I don't know what, 10,000 feet versus.
Well, you know, that's a little less than that. I actually worked in Colorado, and I sold only Colorado wine for a long time. I worked with the Colorado Wine Board to sell all these amazing Colorado wines. I will say that the Colorado wines are a little more rustic style than the more modern production of the California styles and things of that nature. So, but if it was the same wine and it went bad in one day in DC and then another day and lasted a week in Colorado, you know, there's many factors. Light, heat, the particular bottle, the altitude, yes, the temperature, the humidity, all of those factors go into wine. It is literally controlled by the elements. And so my recommendation is, well, you know, drink it or lose it. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to drink extra wine, because that's no fun. I recommend half bottles. I have a device that I use called the Coravin that allows me to extract wine from the bottle without pulling the cork, so my wine in my full bottle, if I just want to drink a sip, if I just want to showcase a half a glass to a client and tell them, here's an example of a California Cabernet that tastes like raw tobacco leaf, or whatever the case may be, I can just pour a little bit out of this bottle and it still ages proper, and it still tastes the same. That's kind of an expensive device, but it just came out about a year ago, and it's really changed the face of the wine tasting industry. So that's always nice to have. But my biggest recommendation is half bottles. There's a lot of great producers that produce half bottles, and that's, you know, 375 milliliters, about 2 glasses. It's just perfect for me. Plus, I get to taste more different kinds of wine. So I guess, you know, it's very hard. Oh, I will say this. When it comes to storing your wine after you've opened it, you got to realize that heat and light are the two biggest enemies. So if you have a bottle and you put a cork in it and then put it on the door of your refrigerator, you know, every time you open it, it's getting exposed to heat and the light, and then you shut it and it's getting sloshed around, and it won't last as long as if you take that same bottle and put it in the very back of your refrigerator, kind of blocked from the light. It's amazing. You don't want to disturb the wine because, you know, it kind of forms a seal on top, and you let that part get oxygenated, and then you save some of the fruity characteristics for the next day or so. Now, there is some wines that take a couple days to open up. I'm not going to lie. I've opened up some Italian wines, and the first day it's tough as nails. You go back the next day, and there's a little more love. But then the third day, it finally opened up and really tasted great. It was really something I wanted to enjoy. You know, I've had that luxury of doing that because I worked in the wine business and the wine stores for so long that we could open a bottle and see what happened in 3 days. I know for the normal consumer that's probably not possible, but it is something to think about, something that is, you know, within the realm of possibility.
Wow,
So-
I didn't think that wine is so complex. I didn't think there's so many elements that go into making wine taste like perfect. So that's why you're here. So, you know, our audience is loving your recommendations. That's fantastic. Jim, you were saying something?
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect segue, because I was going to ask the question, what is it about wine that's so confusing, and what advice can you give people, or can you give our audience to help maybe lessen some of the confusion?
Oh, sure. Well, one of my biggest challenges in the wine world is, you know, working against the stereotype. while trying to maintain the merits of tradition. You know, the snooty waiters, the rich person's drink, the whole French thing, you know, plus terrible cheap wines like, you know, Barefoot and things of that nature. Those all work against the beauty of wine and the wonderful factors of wine. You know, yes, there's a lot of what I'll call grocery store brands out there that can be confusing. I liken that to fast food because if you're a foodie, I promise you that you are not going to McDonald's to try their new salad because it's a culinary work of genius. Okay? And I feel the same way about the wines. Yes, these guys can make 1 million cases, and it tastes the same every year, which is a work of science and nature unto itself, to be able to produce that much wine that is of quality and the same consistency. However, if you like wine a little bit more, and I call that level 1, you know, you start to find things about wine that are less intimidating. You start to find things about wine that are more fun for you. Perhaps you like a very soft, fruity wine that's kind of chilled on a hot summer day. That's great. There's 1,000 wines like that. You know, you don't have to listen to the grocery store or the points or even be led by price. I mean, I have a great wine in my house right now that I've been buying it all summer. It's a little $5 bottle of Gruner Veltliner, which is from Austria, at Trader Joe's. I've been turning everybody I know onto it. It's $5. You open a bottle. If you don't drink it, you don't feel bad. It's got all the light, crispy, kind of fruity, soft flavors we want because, once again, we're in Los Angeles. And so don't be intimidated by price or points or by somebody telling you, you know. If I could give any advice, it would be two words of thought. One is you're right. If you like the wine, drink it. If you don't like the wine, don't drink it. If it's only based on price, oh, this wine's only $8, I really love it. This wine's $25, I can't have it. You know, I wonder how you feel about wines at weddings. Is that your favorite wine because it's free, or is that the least favorite wine because it's terrible? And so it's, you know, there really is a level of enjoyment that is personal to us. And I think really that's what I teach is people getting in touch with their, you know, their wine selves. The second piece of advice I would give you is don't be afraid to say no. You can never truly say yes until you've said no. And so when somebody pulls out a bottle and says, oh, this is a $30 bottle, you're going to love it, and you taste it and you can't stand it, just say no. Just pour it out and push it away and find something else to drink. I promise. Because nothing will dissuade you from enjoying fine wines than having the pressure of a very expensive wine that you don't understand or enjoy being forced upon you. That is absolutely the worst. And it goes the same thing for food or even for music. You know, somebody that's always trying to, oh, come on, you'll love Justin Bieber. Just listen to him. And eventually, you know that that is not your flavor. So I guess that would be my advice to wine consumers is that you're in charge. And that, you know, nowadays we have Googles and we have apps, and you don't have to go and listen to any particular person. You don't even have to listen to the Wine Jerk. But you can go and find, you know, what I would consider to be bias-free information about grapes and wine regions and all sorts of materials. The Wine Atlas and Google and all of that stuff will help you get away from the basics and kind of move on to your own likings and dislikings.
Hey, yeah, that's awesome advice, Christopher. So let's say, and I know one of the things, I'm going to jump around here, but one of the things that you do, you actually take people on wine purchasing excursions.
Yes,
to help them buy wine, and you like to go to the, I'll call it the common man's, you know, the everyday people's places. And out here, one of the most fun everyday people's places, Trader Joe's. I don't know if they're all across the country, but I know for sure we've got a bunch of them out here in SoCal. So you love to take people to Trader Joe's and take them on a shopping excursion. So can you tell us why Trader Joe's, and can you actually find a great bottle of wine at Trader Joe's? And what's a person to do, you know, like a newbie wine shopper to do when there's such a huge selection? Like, how do you decide, like, what's the best wine to buy?
Well, that's a complex question, to be honest with you. Because the perfect wine for you to buy is not the same perfect wine for me to buy. And it's not the same perfect wine that Kit would buy. Because it's always about, you know, personalization. But listen, in regards to Trader Joe's, you know, it's not that I choose it. It's that that's where my clients go. And so what my job is to go where they go and to shop where they shop and help them, because there is good wines at Trader Joe's if you know what to look for. That's part of my service is I do personal wine shopping, and I meet people at the store of their choosing, and we go shopping together. And I help them, I try to help them. Usually it takes 3 wines for me to help kind of triangulate where you are and what it is you like. Taste this wine, oh, I need something heavier. Taste this wine, oh, I need something lighter. You taste this wine, that's perfect. And so that's kind of where I step in and say, well, if you enjoy this, then try, this and this, and stay away from these, and move over to these. So there is good wines to be had. I mean, I will say this, like, there's not going to be a lot of great wine at 7-Eleven, but Trader Joe's has great wines. I went to Atlanta last Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact, and then I did a wine shopping trip out there to the Trader Joe's, and we picked out some great wines. I would say in terms of what to look for at the store, it's very hard. It's very hard to know because there is so many pretty labels, and I would say honestly it's hard to find a bottle just not tasting the wine or without having any kind of familiarity towards what is in that bottle. I include in my classes little tidbits on how to read a wine label and how to understand what's inside that bottle, because for me, I always start in the glass. I taste the wine, I smell the wine, I drink the wine, I ask myself, do I want to know more about this wine? Then I look at the pretty labels and the special promotional material that could be everywhere. Because what happens is a lot of good wines will only advertise. I call it advertising in the bottle. They know that as soon as you pull that cork and try that wine, you're gonna find out more about that. Well, I got to know more. I got to find this. I got to find another bottle. I got to share this with my friends. That's how it works in the wine business. You get that fire lit underneath you, and you want to go and share it with people that you got to try this wine. And in that way, and you always want to, not to be like chasing that or replicating that, but that feeling, that new, for me the phrase that pays is, I didn't know it could be like this. When I hear that, I feel like a gold bar, you know what I mean? Oh, I didn't know it could be. That's right, you didn't know it could be like this. And that's what makes wine one of the only beverages that has survived, the 5,000 years and been a major part of our economy and our traditions and habits. I feel like there's something about wine that really connects us to each other and to the earth. And so it's hard to know that when you're just looking at labels on a shelf and judging it by price and I just want a bottle of wine that's good for $10. I understand that too. You can't get real dedicated and crazy into every purchase, but it helps. I promise you that before you knew about cheese and you were buying Velveeta, and then one day you learned about cheese and you were, oh, you know what? My tastes have changed. My palate has changed. I used to eat macaroni and cheese every day, but now I put truffles on it. So it's always a matter of personal preference and things of that nature. I mean, how do you select a good roast when you go in? Because you've been doing it for so many years. Or what kind of piece you're looking for. Or how do you select your vegetables? You know what I mean? It's the same principle, I guess. It's always a matter of personal preference mixed with price, mixed with availability, mixed with the occasion. And so, for wines that people go into the store and don't know what to do, that is exactly the service I offer. I go to the store with you and help you find, not that the wines that I pick out are the best wines for me. I want them to be the best wines for you. I want you to go home and experiment. Sometimes I'll go out with a client and I'll buy him a case of wine. And I'll give him a piece of paper and I type out all the names for him. And I say, you're going to write down what wines you like and what wines you don't. And the next time we go shopping, we're going to fill your cart with only goodies. Another service I offer is helping people in the wine cellar. They have personal wine cellars and they want to load them up with wines. And so here you go. Let's buy a case of this. Let's try a bottle now. And we write our notes down. And then in 5 years, you try a bottle and you write your notes down. And then 5 more years from that, you try a bottle and write your notes down. And then you know what that wine, you know everything there is to know about that wine. You're a master. That's how it comes to be. I have clients that have bought wines that have been in their cellar for 40 years. And they pull it out and they go, oh, it's time to drink this. I bought this in 1970. And now's the time. And so there's a whole other side of wine, which is the aging wines versus the wines in the supermarket, which are generally meant to be drunk now. So that's a whole other side. I don't want to get way off the subject, but that's what I try to do when we go to the stores, is help people find wines that are good for them. Because it does me no good to sell you a bottle you don't like. That's no fun.
I had a question. I was just reading your website, and you said a good caveman rule of pairing: if it runs from us white, if it
Yes.
tries to eat us red. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Well, in the caveman times, generally the fish and the birds that they could catch were smaller. So what that means is white for smaller game and bird, and then big. It's an old joke in the wine business. If it tries to eat us, which would be the big beefy dinosaur type things, that would be what that means. And so that is the caveman pairing. But that's the oldest joke. The joke is. Rule of thumb for caveman wine pairing: if it runs from us white, if it tries to eat us red, because the heavier dishes are going to go with the red wine, and then the smaller type things will go with the white wine. So it's just a silly, from day one we've been trying to match is kind of what that means.
Now, what I've noticed is that I used to, I have arthritis, so I've been advised not to drink too much wine, but I've been told that red wine has got some medicinal powers. But I prefer white wines because to me they just seem fruitier and kind of sweeter, which I like.
Yes,
is it a good rule of thumb to say, or generalization to say, that white wines are generally sweeter, whereas red wines are slightly tangy and slightly bitter? I mean, I think you need a special taste for red wines.
Well, with all generalizations. There's always exceptions to the rule. But I think that what you're looking for is this. Red wines contain tannins, okay? Tannins that come from the skins, the seeds, and the stems of red wine. So white wines do not have tannins. Now, tannins are that very kind of bitter, astringent feeling that you get back here. It's the same feeling if you've ever drunk an old cup of coffee. Or if the next day you have a glass of iced tea, oh, this was made yesterday, really rough, right? Or yesterday's coffee, like kids drinking. Or yesterday's tea if you're James, who does not drink coffee. Right, James? You ever got a sip of yesterday's tea on accident and it's ridiculously bitter?
Yes, I've tried that too. I'm a coffee snob, so.
Tannins are also in walnuts. So if you want to see what tannins are like, eat a walnut. Okay, and at the end of the walnut flavor, it will go like, ooh, that's very bitter and astringent. Yeah. Although it's pleasant, it kind of works that way. So red wines have tannins generally, and white wines do not have tannins at all. I mean, there can be a tannic quality, but generally we don't even have enough to be a measurable amount. So yes, in truth, white wines would be considered sweeter and fruitier because there's never going to be any tannin to take away from that fruitiness or sweetness. Yes.
There's a comment here, a question. If you put a small spoon in the neck of an open bottle of champagne or sparkling wine, it will not lose its bubbles. Do you know why?
Nobody knows why.
Okay.
That is a mystery as old as champagne. And it's true. It literally works. Now, I believe that it has something to do with the metal in the spoon, though, because obviously plastic spoons don't work. Sterling silver seems to have much more of a success rate. And so, honestly, people don't know. It's one of those mysteries of the earth, which is why I love the wine business, Now, there is modern-day stoppers that you can buy to put into champagne that will literally keep them for days. 5 days, 6 days later, you can open them up, you get the big of CO2, and then the wine still has bubbles in it, and it's still lovely. It's a typical champagne stopper nowadays kind of has that same technology. Because what happens with just the spoon in there is the wine will get oxidized. It won't lose its bubbles, but it will get oxidized because oxygen and wine interact on a constant basis. So you will have that. Now sometimes if the champagne bottle is full and you take the top off, you don't have to put a spoon in there. But it will not get oxygenized because so much CO2 is being released from the bubbles, because the top of the bottle is so small that there's enough CO2 coming out that will keep the air off of it as well. So it works. It's an old wives' tale, but it works. And but there's modern day methods now that keep it a much fresher than that style. But in terms of that, no, nobody knows why. Mystery of the earth.
Mystery of the earth. So, quick question. So, champagne versus wine. What are the differences? How is it processed? What is the process? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's like a 5-year class. So in order to make champagne, you have to have a secondary fermentation. You have to store the bottles. You have to rack the bottles. Generally, it's called storing them on the lees, which is when the bottles are put like at this angle. Oh, are put at a very long angle to so that all of the impurities will lean towards the cork, and then it's quite a long process, to tell you the truth. I mean, the main difference is that champagne has bubbles in it. It is full of CO2, which creates the bubbles. Those bubbles can vary greatly in size, intensity, length of production that they put the bubbles out on. It was only recently that we just actually discovered the true champagne glasses, which are now the modern-day flutes, the elongated glasses. If you've ever seen a movie from before the 40s, they had what I call, they hold it like this, is the bird bath. Looks like a bird bath champagne glasses, right? Like kind of short martini glasses with that rounded rim. But you need to have the length in order to release the bubbles. So a very squat champagne glass will not work. You need to have the long, elongated glass. But in the world of wine, we refer to red wine or white wine, and that would be called still wine. And then anything else, now champagne is obviously the most famous, but anything else that is made in that method, which is called champagne méthode or méthode traditionnelle. For example, in Italy, Franciacorta is the area where they make wine that is every bit as good as some of the champagne houses, absolutely. And in the south of France, you might find a Blanqui de Limoux, which is also made in the exact same method. Champagne is literally a region that is near France, and they're the most famous for producing this particular style of wine. It was the monk Dom Perignon that brought the recipe back from Limoux, which is down in the south of France, and perfected it. He's the one that tasted champagne, and the quote, a famous quote, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I'm tasting stars, and that was it. Champagne has always had a place in our hearts since it was the very first bottle of champagne elicited a great response, and it's been the same way ever since. Now, sparkling wine, in California they just call it sparkling wine, although some people continue to call it champagne, although that is improper. Generally, champagne is a region, and so the wine that comes from Champagne will be called champagne, and the wine that comes from Franciacorta, which is in Italy, even though it's exactly the same grapes, same method, same everything, same aging process, it gets called Franciacorta. And so that's a big problem right now. As a matter of fact, in the USA and Europe, we're making a little union between the food and wine industries that are changing all of those rules and kind of allowing for a more structured labeling. I don't know if that really explains the difference between the two, but I will say that champagne is bubbly. It's amazing. It's the best thing on earth, and it's the only wine that goes with every food, literally, from eggs Benedict in brunches to sushi at night. I recommend champagne. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, we have a question from the audience. Good morning, Rain. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning. So Rain loves organic wine, and she has a question. Are there less tannins in organic red wine than non-organic red wine? She asked because she doesn't seem to get a headache when she drinks organic red wine versus half hour after drinking, not necessarily the whole bottle, but so she's noticing some differences in organic and non-organic. So maybe if you could explain, number one, what is the difference between organic and non-organic, and what are some of the differences there?
Okay. Well, organic can mean many things to start off with. There is literally over 30 levels of recognized organic leanings, I guess you would say, from certified organic grapes to biodynamic wines to all natural. Some people just choose to use that. In France, the term that is most recognized is biodynamic or biodynamic, and generally that means that the wine is produced with no herbicides or pesticides. Now, some wineries produce their wines in this fashion, yet they choose not to use that designation. Why? Well, in a bad year, they want the right to be able to spray for mold or to be able to spray if there's a particular infection. However, most of the time, they choose to use a really, gravity-fed, no herbicide, no pesticide kind of going. It takes into account the stars, the placement of the moon. It's very much a crazy old man's game. but that is why these wines were revered throughout the world, because of their process. And then you taste the wine, and you're like, wow, there really is something to this. It's not just a myth or some fantasy that this wine tastes different than this wine. Now, it's absolutely true. So in America, the labeling is still a little bit behind the times, but it can be labeled organic. It can get the LEED certified, which is more for the actual winery itself than the wine. A lot of wineries are getting into the more gravity-fed, dry harvest styles, which use a lot less water, herbicides, pesticides, and things of that nature. There's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good wines that are organic. There's a lot of good wines that are organic and they don't put it on the label. There's a lot of good wines that in a good year they won't use anything extra. They'll really just kind of listen to the grapes. And then in a bad year they'll use a little more of the, I'll just call it liquid smoke. Kind of like the fake herbs and spices that we use during cooking to kind of cheat a little bit. And so there's a lot of wines that are made that way, which is, I call it recipe style. That every year they're literally the same. It doesn't matter the quality of the grapes they put in. They're going to have a little process, and then that wine's good. Those wines are absolutely not marked organic. And those are the ones that give you a headache. And a lot of times the difference between the two is the sulfites. Because in a wine that I will call a recipe wine, they use a lot of sulfites because they need it to be preserved. They're shipping out 1 million bottles. They need the flavor to stay exactly the same from bottle to bottle. Whereas somebody that produces, 1,000 cases of wine is able to have those kind of differences and celebrate those differences, even between the different barrels of the same wine. It can be very interesting how that works. But as far as organic wines not giving you a headache, I agree, because those herbicides and those pesticides do give us headaches. They are poisons, and if we think they don't affect us as humans after being into the earth, I think that you got to rethink your position there. Just like we feed the hormones to the cows and we eat the cows, and then we're ill, it goes the same thing with the wine. A lot of people don't believe that the area can affect it, but you taste a wine, like from the central coast of California, where the vineyards are literally right on the highway, and you can taste the exhaust in the wines that are made. You take like, oh gosh, these other guys, the wine is planted near honeysuckle. You taste the honeysuckle because that's what's in the earth. That's what's on the earth. The Italian wines that are built on the seasides next to the slopes of the ocean, they absolutely have a salty flavor to them, a sapidity. So the areas count. And if the winemaker doesn't care about the areas, then you're never going to have an organic wine or a wine like that is really, of the earth. It's always a matter of the wine producers. I'll tell you my favorite organic producer, probably Sokol Blosser, and that's SOKOLBLOSSER. Out of Oregon, been doing organic for like 30 years. Superb. You got another question?
Yeah, we do. So Carmen states, if you turn the champagne bottle 360 degrees to the right, and the cork doesn't explode out, any reasoning to that?
I don't know if I follow that. Do you mean to open the bottle?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I 100% follow that either.
Okay, listen, I'll give you this.
Yeah.
When you're opening champagne, I'll use this bottle. Okay. What you want to do is you want to hold the cork tight and twist the bottle. You see, you don't twist the cork. You hold the cork tight and you twist the bottle.
Nice.
That's the proper way to open champagne. Not open thousands of bottles of sparkling wine and champagne. And that's why you always want a cover to go over, just in case. A piece of cloth, or if you're in a restaurant, the waiter will put a napkin over the top, and you won't hear that loud pop, and the cork goes flying and shoot. We're not celebrating a NASCAR win here. We're trying to enjoy some wine. And so I think, I hope that helps answer. But yeah, you don't want the cork to explode out of the wine. That is absolutely, that's from movies. That's wrong. You will absolutely injure somebody if you do that. Please be careful with champagne. It's very dangerous.
Right. Yeah, great advice. I like that. Wow, you are just a cornucopia. You have so much wine knowledge. It's amazing.
No, I think that I do, but I've only scratched. I mean,
Hey, so I want to jump in. We've got about 10 minutes on the show. I want to jump into the wine business a little bit. Maybe if you can tell us big picture. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but big picture. Maybe tell us a little bit about the wine industry, the wine business. What are some of the trends? Maybe what's trending in the wine business these days?
Oh boy. Well, first off, you got to realize that the wine landscape is ever changing, and literally year to year, it's an absolutely different uh, landscape. You know, there is always going to be a few of the big makers and big winemakers that produce the same wine every year, and the traditional stuff is always going to have its place. But right now, it's all about expression of grapes. The traditional winemaker is really an expression of place. You know, you want to taste this Barolo because it tastes like Barolo, and it can only come from one place, and it can only be made in one style, and that's what that is. But now, new winemakers are taking grapes and placing them all around the world. I mean, here in California, most of the native California grapes are not wine worthy. There's very few Native American grapes to make wine out of. Obviously, you know, Catawba and Concord grape makes wines, but I bet you probably already know what that tastes like. And so even in America, you know, we've taken the grapes from other areas and put them here and built up an amazing place to have world-class wines be produced every year. And, you know, that was news in the wine world 40 years ago. And here we are 40 years on board with that. And now other places are becoming the new hot spot for wine. You know, a lot of the trends that are coming are the biodynamic and the all-natural wines, and people that are making the wines with a, you know, no artificial flavors, no artificial power. These guys use only, you know, horse and solar power on the vineyard, and that's how they make the wines in an entirely old world way. A lot of those are coming out because we have the ability now to really produce high quality wines and to be able to talk about them and get them out to anywhere. You know, we have modern day distribution and the internet, and people are able to go out and find literally whatever kind of wine they like. In addition to that, I think that a lot of the what I call grocery store wines, the recipe wines, they're getting better. You know, a lot of the big companies are buying up some of the smaller brands, which is always hurtful in the wine business. I don't want to get too much into that, but in the old days, they would simply buy up an old brand and replace the good. It was like the shell game. They buy this brand and then replace the good juice that everybody loved with some cheap stuff. But because people still love the brand, they still buy it. And then they put the good wines into another brand, you know, and it kind of, it's like I said, it's the shell game because literally every year it changes. What you liked 5 years ago might not even be the same wine this year. What are some of the other trends I'm finding? Well, a lot more people are becoming involved in their own wine journey. Okay, they're not waiting for their mailer from Trader Joe's or from some advertisement in People magazine or some billboard to tell them what to drink. You know, they're basing it on tasting the wine, liking the wine, enjoying the wine. So I think that it's going to the power of the wine business is going to fall back to the consumer. You know, with the internet now, we're able to go and find that bottle of wine we couldn't find before. Instead of having to, you know, make 1,000 phone calls to find a particular bottle, now you can go right to it. I recommend winesearcher.com for anybody that's serious about learning about wines in terms of finding them, buying them, knowing about them. That's a great website. And there's so many invaluable resources now. I mean, even Wikipedia will teach you about areas and wine regions and particular wineries. So you can learn as much or as little as you like to. I guess that's what I would say is the biggest trend.
Hey, you know what? Oh, that's great, Christopher. I bet social media is having an impact on wine as well, because now you have the opportunity, if you come across a great wine for you, you can use your social media to share it with your friends, you know, put it out there into the world that, hey,
absolutely.
Right?
Oh, sure. I mean, most of the people that I follow on Twitter are wineries or wine areas, or like you know, the World of Pinot Noir is a yearly event that I try to attend. There's many places out there where you can go and literally talk to the winemaker, and you don't have to be, you know, snooty waiter or somebody that tries to make you feel silly about the wines, or somebody that just tries to make you buy the wines without even enjoying them. You know, a lot of the winemakers that I know, they only want you to buy the wines if you love the wine. They want it to go to a good home. They don't want you to just drink it because it's trendy. They want you to understand why they made it. And I think that's a big step in the wine business. When you switch over and realize, oh, that's much different. It goes for everything, though. I mean, craft beer, you know, do-it-yourself artists, do-it-yourself home movie makers, which aren't home movies any longer. They're legitimate feature films. I think it's great that we're, you know, using all the tools available to us to enjoy ourselves. What I try to do is build a community of like-minded wine individuals, you know, a bunch of wine jerks that all go around and don't care about price or points or what this guy said. They're going to taste the wine for themselves. Even if somebody says the wine's excellent, I still got to taste it, right? Trust but verify.
I love it. A bunch of wine jerks running around out there. Hey, I have to ask this question. Boxed wine, yay or nay?
Well, in truth, from a scientific point of view, the collapsible bladder is the only way to keep the wine fresh for any extended period of time. That said, a lot of wineries are putting their good wines, you know, bottles that are normally $20 or $30 on the shelf, into boxes. So you tell me, you know, I know that there's been some experiments too where people put, you know, $100 Bordeauxs into those boxes just to see if the public will poo-poo the box or actually taste the wine. And so for me, I love those kind of experiments. That's why I always go back to taste the wine. If I taste the wine, I like the wine, I think this wine's great, oh, it comes out of a box. I don't feel silly. I'll say, excellent, let's drink that wine. But I haven't found that bottle yet for myself. But scientifically, the collapsible bladder is the only way to keep wine fresh after opening it for more than a day or a week or whatever the particular wine is. So on that aspect, I feel like the technology will soon catch up, and there will be some excellent bottles in the box, and it's going to be crazy.
Hey, Kit,
Yeah.
we're getting ready to wind down the show, so any comments, thoughts?
Well, first of all, you're getting such wonderful support in the audience, Christopher. Carmen has welcomed you to visit Spain for a winemaking and tasting. So I think she's a fellow wine jerk, so I think you'll love her.
I love Spanish wine. I could, you know, Spain is one of those countries you can drink Spanish wine every day for the rest of your life and not taste every bottle that they produce. And I'm talking about the good stuff. It's amazing. So, and that goes for every. I mean, it goes for France. It goes for Italy. It goes for America. If you literally tasted a bottle of French wine every night, you would never get through all the good bottles by the end of your lifetime. And to me, that is the wine world that's worth knowing. You know, not the barefoot. I'm just going to go ahead and just put their label right on national air.
You can do anything on Get Busy.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, Christopher, have you ever done virtual wine consulting?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, now it's much different with the Google Hangouts and with the FaceTime. In the old days, you did it, it was ridiculous. You know, it'd be like a modem and a terrible camera. And I'm talking about like 6 years ago, 8 years ago. But it's always better, I feel, to be there because it is an olfactory senses experience. And so, you know, what if we're all smelling the same wine, but somebody has a bad bottle and doesn't realize it? You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things where you need somebody with a professional nose to help you out. Because if you get a flawed bottle or a bottle that's been cooked or left in your car too long and tastes terrible, but you think it's excellent, the next time you go for an excellent bottle, you probably won't be as impressed or feel like it's worth it, you know?
And Rain wants you to, first of all, she thanks you for your amazing information, and she asks you whether you have a list of red wines you'd recommend that have low to no amounts of sulfites and pesticides, etc. So if you want to just go back and put in a list, that'd be great. Or we can answer it now. That's fine, too.
Sure. Well, I would start with Sokol Blosser. They're pretty awesome. Once again, and also look for that phrase, biodynamique, on the French wine. It will help so much. Listen, I will send her a message, though, if I can come up with a list, or I'll put it on my Twitter or something.
Okay.
Low sulfites.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Kit. James, I really appreciate you guys having me on today.
No.
You know, I stopped talking about wine, and I try to make it fun and accessible for all people.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
It's amazing. I didn't know anything about wine, and you've just gotten me so interested. And I think more than just the wine part, I think you're a passionate entrepreneur, and I really love that about you. Is that you always think about your audience, and that just makes you one of Get Busy's favorite people on this planet.
Well, thank you. You know, that's exactly what I go for. You know, after dealing with all that stuff in the wine business, I realized that, you know, there's got to be somebody. And there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of people just like me in the wine business that really, you know, want to maintain the tradition while being open to the new stuff, but still have, you know, a basis of knowledge and kind of a framework of reference, you know, in order to go back to that. That's how it goes. You just kind of have to go and learn about it and drink it.
Hey, Christopher. Sorry, I have one last question in closing. So, kind of getting back to the business of wine consulting.
Yes.
How do you find your clients, and how can our audience in turn find you?
Oh, well, most of my clients I actually found through word of mouth, or I met them with my many years working here in Studio City. And then I go do a party, and then somebody from their event, oh, I have to have a party too. And that's how I got my first, 100 parties, was just person to person. And now I have, I have the website, thewinejerk.com, the Twitter, C_thewinejerk, Facebook page, and apparently now I have a Google Plus page. So, also I find that in this business, people deal with you in different methods. And what I mean is, I have some clients that only want me to call them. I have other clients who only want me to text them. Other clients, send me a Facebook message. Other clients, shoot me an email. And so it's very, once again, personalized. If you just send out an email blast, but this guy, is 78 and doesn't have email, he don't care about that. He wants a phone call. And so I kind of take that time to do that, and that's helped me. I call people, I talk to people face to face, and I think that's helped me get more clients because people always seem to remember me. Because I'm willing to look at them in the eye and talk to them and not just send them some kind of blank email blast that's totally impersonal.
Yeah, so it's like go where the customers are, huh?
I'll tell you, I also get a lot of clients because I'll be at Costco doing a wine tasting and they're like, who are you? What are you doing? And so I give them my card. I say, listen, I can't talk to you right now. I'm talking to a client. But if you want me to come back and talk with you, that's what we do. And so that happens as well. People see you in the store talking to somebody else. I've tried to come up with some good marketing in terms of, I got shirts and nice wine bags that say the Wine Jerk on them, and just stuff like that. I want people to be able to recognize each other, but it be not too forced, I guess. I want it to be a more organic community.
Yeah, I think everyone should watch this episode because there's so many business nuggets of information that you've doled out today that I've been making notes actually. So thank you so much for coming and Get Busy and just, really getting me excited about wine. I'm never going to make fun of my husband again. He's a wine and cheese snob. And
that's how it goes. Like, listen, it happens for everything, okay? Think about when you use Suave shampoo and then you learned about the good stuff. It's for everything in this life. It's part of the natural evolution.
Yes.
Whatever.
So just stay open-minded is what I'm going to tell our audience, too. I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And listen, I also deal with a lot of clients who don't drink whatsoever. But they have clients or their daughter's getting married and they need some advice on wine. And so they come to me because other people in their family like what I do, and so they trust my advice. And so I want to encourage that too, that if you don't know about wine or don't even drink wine, I still want to be there to help you, understand it better. So that if you want to be in the gift-giving mood or, some people own a restaurant, don't drink at all, which hard to believe. But, so I have to really help them kind of find out good stuff. And, that's part of the job. Good stuff.
Well, I'm definitely connecting with you on Facebook, Twitter, because I want to learn more about it. So I'm kind of very excited. I enjoy the history of anything, and I really enjoyed how you talked about France and Spain and all the regions and how Champagne came about. And I enjoy learning more about such things. So, yeah. So I'll be connecting with you for sure.
Good, great. I have less than 100 followers on Twitter because I delete all the bots. With,
It doesn't matter about the quantity. What matters is you have a really good personal relationship with the clients that you do have, and that's what
exactly
really builds your business.
I mean, most of all my clients have my phone number. I get calls all the time.
Yeah.
I just got a text yesterday about some advice. I'm in the store. What do I buy? that's the kind of guy I want to be. You know, that's what the Wine Jerk's all about, is helping you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christopher. Jim, any last thoughts?
Yes. Thank you so much, Christopher. Like I said, you are a wealth of knowledge about wine. You're absolutely doing. You're doing your passion. You're following your passion. You're an inspiration to all of us to make sure that we are as knowledgeable in our related careers as you are in wine. So, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week and get busy. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.